She told me I was suffocating her and threw me out. But when I checked the security footage that night, I realized I was about to be framed for a crime I didn't commit that I, 34 am. Never thought I'd be the kind of guy posting on Reddit. I've always seen myself as grounded, maybe too practical for online confessions. But lately, I can't sleep without replaying that night over and over again. Writing feels like a way to breathe. A bit about me. I'm a mechanical engineer, the kind of person who finds comfort in structure and predictability. My ex, I guess I can call her that now, Laura, 31F, was the opposite. She was spontaneous, artistic, worked as a freelance illustrator. When we met 5 years ago, her chaos felt like oxygen to my overplanned life. We met through a mutual friend at a local art fair. I was the guy helping set up the projector that broke halfway through the show. She was the girl who painted over the broken screen just to make it part of the installation. I laughed, she smiled, and that was it. We moved in together 2 years later, my townhouse, small but solid, in the suburbs just outside of Seattle. The kind of place where neighbors wave when you drive by, but never ask real questions. I like that. At first, things were easy. She'd work late into the night on commissions. I'd make coffee in the mornings and fix her old laptop when it froze. But around the start of this year, something began to tilt. Nothing dramatic at first, just distance. She stopped showing me her sketches, started working in her studio with the door closed. Her phone, which used to sit face up on the coffee table, was now always face down. I told myself I was being paranoid. We'd both been stressed. She had a big client. I was dealing with a project delay at work. Relationships ebb and flow, right? But there were moments, tiny, needling moments that didn't sit right. Like when I found 2 wine glasses in the sink one afternoon when I came home early. Or when she mentioned having a girls' night, and her friend Tessa later posted a story from her living room, alone, with her cat. I asked Laura about it once, lightly. She smiled that tired smile, the kind people wear when they're annoyed but trying to seem kind, and said, "You're reading too much into everything, Nate. You've become intense lately." Intense. The word stung. Because she wasn't wrong. I had become more alert, watching patterns, timing her outings. I hated it. I didn't want to be the man who checked his partner's phone or counted toothbrushes in the bathroom. But there's something about sensing a lie that rewires your brain. So I started documenting, quietly. Not out of obsession, out of self-preservation. February 3rd. She left at 6:40 p.m., said she was meeting a client downtown. I checked her Find My app. She'd shared it months ago, back when we trusted each other like idiots. She stayed in our neighborhood, specifically near the corner of Maple and 3rd, a residential block. No cafes, no studios. When she came home, she smelled faintly of cologne I didn't wear. I wrote it down, just a note in my phone. February 3rd, Maple and 3rd, said client meeting. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Over the next few weeks, the gap between us widened until it felt like a canyon. We'd eat in silence, each pretending to scroll our phones while listening for the other's breathing. Then came March 17th, the night that still echoes when I close my eyes. We were in the middle of a muted argument, something stupid about groceries, when she suddenly exploded. "You're not welcome here anymore," she shouted, voice breaking halfway. "I can't live like this, with your suspicion, your silence, your notes. It's suffocating." I stood there, keys still in my hand. I hadn't raised my voice, hadn't accused her of anything. But I think she saw it in my face, that I knew, or was close to knowing. So I did what seemed rational. I said, quietly, "Okay," and started packing my bag. No threats, no pleas, just quiet movement, the sound of zippers and drawers. She cried, but didn't stop me. That told me everything. Around 11:30 p.m., I had my bag by the door. My plan was to crash at my friend Josh's place for the night. But just as I reached for my keys, I heard something. A soft thud from her studio. Then another. Not the sound of someone crying or moving things. More like a dull, deliberate shuffle. It wasn't unusual for her to paint late, but there was something off about it. A rhythm that didn't fit. Curiosity overrode anger. I walked quietly down the hall. The door to the studio was cracked open just enough for a sliver of light to cut across the hallway. Inside, she was talking. Not on the phone, at least, not that I could see. More like whispering to herself. Then I caught a second voice. A man's. Low, muffled. Not from the phone speaker, from inside the room. That's when I saw movement. A shadow in the far corner, near the window. Someone was there. My stomach dropped. I stepped back before they could see me, went to the living room, and grabbed my phone. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, I opened the security app. The cameras I'd installed outside last year had an interior test feed, still active though never used. I switched it on. The feed flickered for a second, then showed the hallway camera. Two figures emerged from the studio, Laura and a tall man. Hoodie pulled up, carrying something that looked like a bag of electronics. They whispered, laughed quietly. She kissed him once before leading him to the back door, the one that opened into the yard, not visible from the street. My chest felt like it was full of static. She wasn't just cheating. She was hiding something else. I took screenshots. Then I recorded the playback on my phone, just in case she deleted the cloud footage. The man left. She stood by the door for a minute, then went back into the studio. I stayed frozen in the hallway, watching her on the screen, packing more things into a box labeled Project Files. Then she turned toward the hallway camera, and for half a second, looked straight into it. No fear, just a blank, distant look. Like she knew. I shut off the app, sat in the dark for what felt like hours. I didn't leave that night. Something deep in my gut told me that if I walked out, I'd never know the full story. March 18th, 2:07 a.m. I started gathering everything. Receipts, notes, backup drives, her old hard disk she once asked me to wipe clean. Something wasn't just personal, it was deliberate. That's when I found it. In her email drafts folder, unsent but saved, was a document titled Statement for HR Harassment. It described me, down to the smallest detail. Only the version she wrote wasn't real. According to her, I had been stalking her, controlling her finances, installing hidden cameras, which, ironically, I had, for security, and emotionally manipulating her into isolation. There was even a paragraph suggesting she feared for her safety. My hands went cold. It wasn't just betrayal, it was preparation. She was building a case. And that night, I realized, I wasn't just being kicked out. I was being set up that I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even move from the chair by the window. Just sat there, the glow of my laptop washing over me, rereading the statement for HR, until the words stopped meaning anything. I remember checking the time, 3:12 a.m. I remember the sound of rain starting outside, soft, rhythmic, almost mocking. I tried to think like an engineer, not like a man whose life was unraveling. If she had this statement drafted, that meant she was preparing a narrative. Someone was going to see it. Her employer, maybe my own, maybe even the police. And if I confronted her wrong, I could walk right into her version of the story. So I forced myself to think systematically. Step 1. Evidence control. I disconnected the Wi-Fi and made a copy of everything I could: emails, messages, photos, even the raw footage from the cameras. Then I uploaded it all to a secure drive I'd used for work before, not Google Drive, not iCloud, but an encrypted project storage with time-stamped uploads, something that could be verified later if needed. Then I backed it up again to a flash drive I put in my car's glove compartment. Step 2. Legal precaution. At 7:48 a.m., I called a lawyer. Not someone fancy, just a contact from my company's HR who once handled a workplace dispute for a colleague. Her name was Rachel Lynn, mid-40s, calm, precise, spoke like someone who'd seen too many people ruin their lives with one bad reaction. I didn't tell her everything at once, just that I suspected my partner might be preparing a false harassment claim, and that I had evidence contradicting it. She didn't sound surprised. She just said, "Don't confront her. Document, timestamp, preserve every message, every file, and record any future interaction, legally, if your state allows one-party consent. Do not let her bait you into emotional behavior." That line, "don't let her bait you," stuck in my head. Step 3. Observation. I stayed in the house that day. I told her via text that I'd be leaving tomorrow instead, that I needed time to arrange logistics. She replied only once. "Do whatever you want." No apology. No anger. Just apathy. She spent the day in her studio again. I heard drawers open, paper rustling. Around 2 p.m., I saw a delivery truck pull up. She received a box. No label, just studio equipment. I took a picture of it. By evening, I noticed something else. The studio door was locked. She had never locked it before. March 19th, 11:42 p.m. It's strange how silence can sound heavy. The house was too still, like it was holding its breath. I checked the outside camera feed again. No visitors, no car movement. Then, around midnight, the strange noises started again. Soft mechanical sounds, like a printer or a scanner, but deeper. And then, a man's voice. The same one I'd heard before, though faint. I opened the camera app and saw something new. Two figures again in the studio, both standing near the work desk. She handed him a drive. He pocketed it, nodded, and looked toward the hallway, straight at the camera again. He knew. It hit me. This wasn't about an affair. It was about data. She'd been working on a project for a local tech startup. She'd signed an NDA, bragged about it for weeks. Something about augmented reality texture mapping. If she was leaking files and framing me as the unhinged ex in case something went wrong, it all made a twisted kind of sense. I took another recording, 2 angles this time, and backed it up instantly. March 20th, the confrontation. By morning, my lawyer had emailed me a short plan. If I suspected corporate theft or fraud, I needed to file a preliminary statement with law enforcement before confronting her. Otherwise, she could accuse me of tampering or intimidation. So I went to the police. Not the main station, but a local precinct. The officer on duty, a tired-looking guy named Officer Brennan, listened, took notes, and asked to see the footage. When I showed him, his face changed. He said quietly, "You should step out of that house tonight, sir. We'll process this. Don't alert her." But leaving meant losing access. No more first-hand observation. So I compromised. I booked a hotel nearby, but left a small recording device, a motion-triggered audio recorder, hidden near the studio door. When I returned at 6 p.m., she was waiting. "Where were you?" she asked. Her tone wasn't angry, more wary. "Out," I said simply. "You said I wasn't welcome here." She crossed her arms. "You're still here." I wanted to tell her I knew everything. That the police had her face on camera handing over stolen data. That I had her HR statement safely archived. That her little story was crumbling. But I didn't. I just said, "I'll be gone tomorrow." That night, she didn't lock her studio. And around 11:50, someone came again. The breaking point. The motion recorder picked up everything. I didn't hear it live. I played it back the next morning. Sitting in the car outside the house, the sun just starting to rise. Her voice. "He's leaving tomorrow. You'll have what you need before then." Male voice. "Good. Once it's uploaded, he's the fall guy if anything leaks. His system logs will line up." Then, a pause, footsteps, a door closing. I stopped the playback and just sat there gripping the steering wheel. She wasn't just preparing to accuse me. She was actively framing me as the source of the leak. Using my home network, my devices, my name. I called Rachel immediately. She didn't say much, just, "Bring everything to me. Every file, every clip, and stay out of that house." That was the last night I slept under that roof. The aftermath, pre-update. The following days were a blur of paperwork, statements, and waiting. The company she'd been working with, Vixer Tech, got involved fast. Their legal department confirmed that proprietary design files had been accessed from my IP address. If I hadn't preserved the footage, I would have been the perfect scapegoat. She'd even emailed herself copies from my Wi-Fi network, timestamps lining up with times I was asleep or out. When the police obtained her laptop and external drives, it was over. Not with a bang, with a quiet, bureaucratic click of an evidence bag. She didn't fight it at first. But when the reality set in, when lawyers got involved and charges became real, she sent me one last message. "You've ruined my life. I never meant for it to go this far." I didn't reply, because I didn't know what part she meant, the affair, the theft, or the lie about me being dangerous. Maybe all of it. Maybe none. Update 1. It's been about 6 weeks since that night. The night I stopped being the paranoid boyfriend and became the only person who could prove what really happened. A lot of you asked what came next. I wish I could say it wrapped up neatly, like in movies, where the truth surfaces and everyone claps. Reality doesn't do applause. It just keeps moving. After I handed everything over, the police and Vixer Tech's legal team moved fast. Apparently, a major leak of their prototype design had been traced to a foreign IP relay. The digital trail ended at my home router, which made me their first and easiest suspect. If I hadn't saved those camera feeds and audio logs, I would have been destroyed before I even knew why. Rachel, my lawyer, kept me grounded through the chaos. She told me to say nothing publicly, not even to friends or co-workers. The less noise, the better. Meanwhile, Laura was questioned. I wasn't there, obviously, but from what the detective later told me, she first denied everything. Said I was controlling, that I'd hacked her devices to manufacture evidence. Classic projection. But digital forensics doesn't care about stories. It cares about math. Metadata, timestamps, IP headers, router logs. All of them matched her laptop's activity. And then there was the clincher. The motion audio recorder I'd planted caught her saying, his system logs will line up. No editing, no splicing, pure, raw audio. It was enough to secure a warrant and seize her equipment. When they analyzed her external drives, they found multiple compressed archives labeled innocuously, ref textures underscore A, project samples, archive underscore 3. Inside, company assets, client data, full design packages. Some of them had already been transferred to anonymous cloud links. Vixertech kept the matter quiet at first. They were more concerned about internal containment than punishment. But leaks attract leaks. A tech blog got wind of the security breach within 2 weeks. No names at first, but enough breadcrumbs for locals to connect dots. That's when she struck back. Laura posted a long, emotional note on Instagram, something along the lines of, I'm not perfect. I made mistakes. But being manipulated, spied on, and gaslit for years breaks you. Sometimes survival looks like chaos. Thousands of likes. Comments full of men are trash and stay strong, queen. My name wasn't in the post. But she tagged our old house location, and people figured it out fast. I got messages. Some angry, some pitying. One from my own cousin saying, even if you didn't do it, man, you must have done something to drive her crazy. That one hit hardest. Rachel said, don't engage. Let the paper trail talk. So I stayed silent. I deleted my social media, told work I was taking a personal leave. Instead, I spent hours building timelines, syncing every date, every file, every line of data. At one point, Rachel asked, why are you still doing this? The case is solid. And I told her the truth. Because I need to see it all make sense. I need to know I didn't imagine any of this. I guess that's what betrayal does. It scrambles reality until you have to reconstruct it from logs and file hashes just to trust your own memory. The pretrial hearing happened quietly, mid-April. I wasn't required to attend, but I went anyway, sitting in the back. She looked different, smaller somehow. Still pretty, still composed, but deflated. When she turned her head and saw me, her expression didn't change. No anger, no shame, just nothing. Her lawyer argued that she'd been coerced, manipulated by a third party who exploited her emotional state, that she never intended to frame me. She was scared and confused. It almost worked. For a moment, even I wanted to believe it. But then the prosecutor played the recording, the one where she said, he's leaving tomorrow. You'll have what you need before then. Hearing it echo in that courtroom made my stomach twist. It wasn't anger I felt, just exhaustion. She didn't cry, didn't even flinch. Just sat there, hands folded, eyes down. She took a plea deal. Pled guilty to unauthorized access and data theft. The part about framing me, malicious misrepresentation, got folded into it. 6 months of house arrest, restitution to the company, mandatory therapy, probation. No jail. No justice that felt like justice. The DA told me. She cooperated. She gave us the contact she'd been leaking to, some guy overseas who's now under investigation. So, in a twisted way, she became useful again. And me? I was officially cleared. On paper, I'm fine. Being cleared doesn't erase the side eyes from colleagues when you return to work. It doesn't make your mother stop whispering, are you sure you're okay? Every time you visit. It doesn't delete the screenshot threads on Reddit where strangers debate whether you're the abuser or the victim. Winning the truth feels like losing something else. The ability to trust that truth will matter next time. I've moved out of that house permanently. Rented a small apartment downtown. I kept one camera, not for security, just a reminder of what vigilance costs. Sometimes I still scroll through the footage from that last night. Not to relive it, just to remind myself it happened. That I didn't dream the whole thing. People say closure is about peace, but I think it's more about containment. The wound stops bleeding, but it never really heals. It just stops being loud. Final update that it's strange how fast a year can disappear when you spend most of it trying to feel normal again. I turned 35 last month. My friends took me out to dinner, made jokes about how I'd finally joined the land of the living. I laughed. It sounded real enough that even I almost believed it. I live in a different city now, Portland. My new apartment faces a quiet street lined with maples. On weekends, I walk to the coffee shop across from the river and sit by the window with my laptop, working or just pretending to. It's not that I'm lonely. I just got used to silence, the kind that doesn't hide anything behind it. After everything with Laura, I thought there would be a clean break. Investigation over, her punishment served, life resumes. But closure doesn't work like a light switch. It's more like corrosion. It keeps working under the surface, long after the surface looks smooth again. About 4 months after the plea deal, she emailed me. It came through my old work address, one I hadn't used in months. The subject line just said, "I'm sorry, truly." The message wasn't long. She said she didn't expect forgiveness, that she'd been manipulated by the guy she leaked to, that he convinced her I was already cheating, that he'd help her get even by taking the files and selling them as some kind of moral revenge. She said she never intended to destroy me, only to protect herself from humiliation. I didn't reply. I couldn't even decide if I believed her. Maybe she was telling the truth. Maybe she was rewriting it again, the way she always did, twisting the narrative until she could stand living inside it. I asked Rachel once, during a follow-up call, what happens to people like that afterward? She said, most of them disappear into quieter versions of themselves. Guilt has gravity. It pulls you down even when no one's pushing. I think about that sometimes. The weirdest part is how much the world forgets. Online, the posts about us are buried under new scandals. My coworkers stopped whispering. Even my mother stopped asking if I was over it. Time doesn't heal. It just replaces one noise with another. But in small ways, it still follows me. I flinch when someone leaves their phone face down on the table. I keep paper copies of everything, bank statements, emails, even receipts. I read the privacy policy before installing any new app. Not out of paranoia anymore, but habit. Like an immune response after an infection. There's someone new in my life. Her name's Elise. We met at a workshop last winter. She's a data analyst, ironically enough. Smart, kind, has this dry humor that feels like honesty instead of defense. When she stayed over for the first time, she noticed the security camera in my hallway and asked, "Do you really need that?" I said no, but it helps me sleep. She didn't press, just nodded and said, "Then keep it." That moment meant more than I could explain. I don't check the feed anymore. Haven't in months. But I also haven't taken it down. Maybe I never will. It's not a camera anymore. It's a reminder. A monument to how easy it is to lose yourself in someone else's version of reality. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I replay those last minutes in my head. Me standing in that hallway, her shouting that I wasn't welcome there anymore. I used to think that was the moment everything fell apart. Now I think it was the moment everything started to make sense. Because she was right. I wasn't welcome in that house anymore, but not because I'd done anything wrong. I just didn't belong in a story built on someone else's lies. The truth set me free, technically, but freedom's a strange reward. It doesn't come with peace, just the weight of knowing exactly what happened and having no one left to share that knowledge with. Still, I'd take that over the alternative. Because at least when I lock my door now, I know which side I'm on.